Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bad Lit Friends, the writing podcast that still barely knows what it's doing. I'm your host, Meagan Thompson-Mann, and this is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kirk Rafferty.
And today we are going to be talking about dialogue, which is a good thing for writers to know about, but also for two co-hosts to talk about because we are in dialogue with each other every
Mhm,
week that we
mhm.
actually manage to show up. And apologies again for our 2 weeks of absence. Life got in the way.
Yeah, it was just kind of this perfect storm of, like, really great happy things and really awful unhappy things.
Well, let me do my happy stuff first.
Yes, yes, please.
So, I got married to the wonderful Shane on
Yay,
June 10th.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. It
I
was
I, by
wonderful.
the way, have met Shane on several occasions, and, he's a very fine, upstanding gentleman.
That is a total fucking lie because you have read his JD Vance erotica.
I I yes,
L
I have.
Listeners, if you think I'm joking, I'm not.
No, she's
You
not,
This is one of those things where you read it and you're like, I would like to rewind the tape of my life, 90 seconds and just forget everything. It's not just about couch fucking. It's
it's so
l
much more. It's
it's
so much more. Yeah.
deeply perverted. I do love this person very much, enough to marry him, and notwithstanding this weird ass shit. And, so we were up in the Bay Area with our friends, Brandy, Miguel, and Regina, and we were in Berkeley, we were in San Francisco, we got married in San Francisco. I had a extra big ass black wedding gown with a cathedral length black veil, and,
That wedding gown, like, is lit. Like, yeah, it was
it was
fantastic.
wonderful.
So, yeah, I don't you're posting photos, right?
I will, yeah, I posted some photos, I'm
Yeah,
gonna post some
so,
more. I'll
yeah,
I'll post
listeners,
some
check out these photos because this gown is amazing.
so thank
And
you.
you looked amazing in
Thank you
that
so
gown,
much.
Megan.
I was extremely happy and hopefully it shows. Everything turned out great. Went to wine country, tasted wine, ate cheese, ate chocolate, ate cupcakes, ate Velveeta shells and cheese.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, on the Friday night, it was pretty great. Wonderful. Everything went off without a hitch. So, kudos to myself. Round of
Yay,
applause
good
for
good
pulling
job,
off
Megan.
something like this. So, very, very pleased with myself. And now I am back. And this is where I am going to announce that I have decided that it is about time that I take a pen name. Although I am not changing my legal name, I am forever and ever, amen, going to be Meagan Thompson Mann, MTM. I am taking on a pen name, Meagan Essery. Essery is Shane's last name. It is a name that was just lying around the house, so I like free stuff.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I'm taking it as my pen name simply because I have a professional life. I do professional writing, and I think it would be good to separate them a little bit. But on this podcast, I shall be yours eternally, Meagan Thompson Mann.
Amazing.
Thank you. Tell us about Kirk's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah. So in one word, COVID. We thought that was behind us all. Looking back, I still have no idea what circumstance would have put me in that. Fortunately, nobody else in the household
Glad to hear it.
suffered under that. But yeah, so it's kind of taken a toll on my writing. But I will say, the last episode we did, which was what, 6 years ago. Um,
Approximately, yeah.
I had mentioned that I wasn't happy with my middle. This is the horror novel that I'm writing. I wasn't happy with the middle, wasn't happy with the end. Somehow, during all of this, I managed to put an outline together of a much better middle, much better end. And I even managed to knock out a few words on that. I haven't
Fun.
counted them, under 1,000, maybe over 500. And I'm not sure how I did that, but yeah, I just had this kind of spark of energy in the middle of it all and knocked them out, and then went back to sleep for the rest of the week. So
Good.
the good news is feeling a lot better, just a little low energy right now. But yeah, so that's my story. Not near as fun as going out, eating shells and cheese, which last week would have made me vomit to hear something like that, but
Sorry, sorry. I will point
no,
out
no,
that
it
it's
sounds amazing right now, like, I think I might go grocery shopping after we're done recording and get me some of that.
listen, my Venmo, if you're ever looking for me, I am Velveeta Shells and Cheese is my, like, profile pic, on Venmo. So, I have feelings about Velveeta Shells and Cheese. I realized I didn't say anything about my writing, which is because there hasn't been any. Life has been big, but I am getting back to writing. I
Were you
have
busy? Were you busy?
just a little. Just a
Yeah.
little. I was telling you before we started that I wrote a motion for summary judgment under the threat of you can't go away to your wedding until this is done. So I wrote a motion for summary judgment in about a week. Which, if you are a lawyer or know a lawyer, these are not fun and complicated things to do. And I did that. So that's where all that energy went to. But I did do some unwriting and wrote a couple of words. But this week I'm getting back into it. I think I am a chapter and a half away from being done. As I think I mentioned before, I have now sorted out the ending. Feeling really good.
Did
So
you write the wedding vows?
I did write my
That
wedding
counts as
vows.
writing. So there
I
you
did
go.
I did write my wedding vows, and they were
Yeah.
about 350 words. So
Okay. Well, so add it to the tally. Yeah.
I should about the length of the meat of a query letter.
Yeah, there you go. You might as well just say you've written your query, and then you'll just have to edit heavily.
So this week we are going to talk a little bit about writing dialogue, talking about meat and potatoes. This is not a delicate sauce to pour over your book. This is definitely a large portion of what you are doing. Now, I don't know about you. I don't technically think about like how many dialogue lines that I'm writing as I'm going along. I know that people tend to say, like, you should be aiming for like 25 to like 35% of your book should be dialogue. Of course, as we're going to talk about, very genre specific. But for me, I kind of keep in there without even thinking about it. How about you?
Yeah, I can't hold myself to those kind of metrics, I guess. I write dialogue when it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I write other things when that makes sense, and
I,
so
yeah. Yeah.
I will say though that I think that my balance comes out pretty well. So I
Yeah.
must be doing something right.
Me too. I wanna talk about dialogue this week. It's because it's something that my critique partners, my alphas and my betas have all said that without patting myself too much on the back, I do quite well,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
these sound like people who are talking. In fact, friend of the show, Laura B, said to me that she could hear it and that it was like calling out for an audiobook version, which is so flattering. Thank you again, Laura.
Yeah. Yeah.
But dialogue does so much in a story, whether or not you're talking about a short story all the
Mhm.
way up into your big fat fantasy novels. But it's not just people talking.
It's not
So,
yeah.
no, no, there's so many other things that it does at one time. So you are building character. You are moving your plot along. You are building your tension. You are creating subtext. You are setting scenes. You're doing kind of everything.
That's right.
And when you do it right, it feels natural. And when you don't get it right, which doesn't necessarily even mean bad, it just kind of means it it can really kind of mess up the flow of your book. So it's not just two people or three people or eight people or whatever exchanging information. There's a lot more going on. So I'll put you a question, Kirk.
Okay.
What do you think good dialogue looks like or sounds like or reads like?
So, wow, I'm gonna give you a really boring stock answer, but it's just something that keeps me hooked, right? It keeps me engaged. It keeps the story moving along. What I don't want to see in dialogue is just two people talking. Unless that's somehow kind of character revealing or something, right? Like so, two characters talking about the weather when, there's this, world ending thing happening out there and two people are talking about the weather. That's a contrived example but you want your dialogue to move things along, and that's a fine line to walk because what you don't want happening is, you know, as you know, Bob, the secret plans were stolen by the, terrible plan stealing gophers, and it's our job to get them back, right? You don't want info dumping in your dialogue. You don't want info dumping really anywhere, but it's especially painful in your dialogue. If you're writing dialogue to pass information along to the reader, you need to be very, very careful about that because when
Uh-huh.
if you don't do it right, it's going to sound exactly what I just said. It's going to sound like that you're just info dumping. Sorry, my
Mhm.
brain is still full of cotton
It's
and I
fun.
keep losing my place. But I guess that's that's my answer.
Yeah, and I think a podcast, or at least kind of recording for a podcast, gives us an example of how you can have a conversation that is somewhere in between the dialogue in a book, which is
Mhm.
has form and structure to it, and our natural conversations, which are full of a lot of filler,
Yeah.
right? And there a lot of hesitation, a lot of ums, ahs,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We have software that strips all the ums, or,
A
most of them
lot of
out.
them. Yeah.
I add some back so we sound a little bit more human. But, we repeat ourselves, right? We talk
Mhm.
over each other.
Yeah.
But when you're writing dialogue, all of that stuff needs to come out, or a lot of it needs to come out
Mhm.
while you're still trying to make it feel real, and that's a really hard thing to do. And when you hit your stride in it, when you're writing it, it feels also like the easiest thing to do. For
Yeah.
me, if you know your characters well, writing dialogue is some of the most fun that you can have in a book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You actually want to get to a point where somebody can read a line of dialogue and know exactly who spoke that line without any kind of tag or attribution, right? Like, that you've arrived when somebody can do that.
Yeah, yeah, and also, sometimes you might you might be enjoying yourself too much, and you might add too much dialogue,
Right.
and exposition is a really important part of storytelling. Otherwise, you've written a screenplay or a stage play, right? Or a radio play. So, you need to strike a balance between exposition and dialogue, and even within dialogue, you need to be, interspersing exposition as well.
Mhm.
So, this is some craft shit, right? This is a craft shit episode. There are very few things that I feel vaguely competent to talk about craft in, but dialogue is one of them, and most of what I'm gonna say today, comes from 2 places. One is this amazing course that I took during COVID.
Which for me was last week, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I used my Trump books and paid for a course, through Oxford University's extension program, and we did an entire unit on dialogue, and I learned so much about making it sound real. But the other part of it is just fucking writing.
Mhm.
So you hit on a really important point just a moment ago, which is that every character needs to sound distinct, right? So if
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
can swap the names of the characters who are speaking. It doesn't matter if it's Amy or Joe, you have a problem. And the way that I've found to solve one of the really simple ways that you can do this is to start out listening to people having conversations. Listen to people that you know. Listen to people that you know well have
Sure.
conversations with each
Sure.
other. Right? And what do they do? How do they express themselves? The tone of their voice? Do they have, like, little catchwords that they like to use?
Mhm.
Catchwords is something that I use a lot in my writing. They're little like, verbal ticks, because most of us have little crutch words that we use a lot.
Mhm.
Mine
Mhm.
happens to be "fuck," but you can do that in your characters as well. Maybe not use an expletive, especially if you're writing middle grade. But you can develop little catchphrases, crutch words for your characters that are an immediate signal to your reader, ah, that's Amy, or oh, that's Joe. And you do that by eavesdropping shamelessly on everyone everywhere.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
even known a friend of mine, who's a writer. She actually carries a notebook with her
Mhm.
and just writes, like, really interesting little things. She's always listening to people around her, and she's not like recording their conversation in her notebook, but she's like, if somebody says something like very interesting, or it's a way they said it, maybe a tone in their voice, or just a very interesting kind of back and forth, like, she'll take a note of that, right? But the other thing too is, so some of us are little homebodies, don't get out a lot, and aren't
I don't
around
know
a lot of
what you're
people.
talking about.
Right. And so, what else helps with dialogue is reading dialogue. So
Mhm.
your favorite author, like, how are they handling dialogue? And there's nothing like, reading and enjoying a book, but also kind of studying it, kind of taking it apart. And when you read an interesting line of dialogue, just to kind of settle in that moment, and really run it through your head, and figure out, like, what's working about it, or the opposite, like, what's not working about this,
Yeah.
maybe this line of dialogue, or maybe this conversation,
Yeah.
right? So we've all got books that we really didn't connect with, and did you not connect with it through the dialogue? So that's the go back and kinda study it, and like, see where it's where you're kinda just pinging on it wrong,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think, reading in your genre, as we've said so many times, is really important because different genres have different expectations. So, satire is absolutely going to, require a kind of
Mhm.
piquant tone, witty, snappy, kind of Aaron Sorkin-y dialogue.
Sure.
Romance, sort of historical romance, you're oh boy. So, with historical romance, there is forever a question of if you're writing about people who were speaking in English
Mhm.
and you're writing in English as an Anglophone, this is what I know. How modern should let's say 17th century people be speaking? You want the text to be accessible. Obviously, you're not going to try and put any obvious anachronisms like, Sir Charles texted Lady Rachel. No, obviously not. Like, darling, my darling Lady Rachel, let me contact you on WhatsApp. No, but do you how much of the words that would have been used at the time is appropriate? Some people are purists and they want, era specific language. Other people are like, whatever, I don't care. And a lot of people are kind of in between. These are questions you have to ask yourself. And these are questions that you will answer by reading in your genre.
Can I take you on a slight tangent on that too?
Absolutely.
So I can't remember if I was in a workshop or something, because so I do historical fiction, and so I do a lot of reading up on how to write historical fiction. And one of the problems that historical fiction writers will come across is actually names, or just phrases, or whatever, that sound too modern, but actually were real. So, one example was, like, names, and I wish I could recall a name, but, like, 200 years ago, there was a common name, and it was like Becky or Buffy or something like that, right? And it sounds so modern, but you can't, even though it's historically accurate, you probably don't want to use that because somebody's reading along about, life on the prairie in 1822, and Buffy comes along, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that was the actual
It's
name, but I can't
it's
remember.
hard though. I mean,
Yeah.
even writing right now, I'm writing in 2008, and it's trying to remember what slang was. I get stuff
Mhm.
wrong all the time, and I start second guessing myself. I want these people to sound real. And what did people sound like in 2008? Well, it was only 18 years ago, but nobody was saying 6, 7. Not that I do, but
But
it's
they
but
were walking around with their BlackBerries, right?
they were walking around with their BlackBerries, they had their
Yeah.
1st gen iPhones, and that's been kind of interesting is that this is a novel in which there's a lot of texting because we were texting a lot in 2008,
Using up those minutes.
using up those minutes.
Yeah.
God, when I lived in the UK and they charged you not only for outgoing messages, but for incoming text messages too.
Mhm.
And you're like, don't text me. Just an emergency only. That's an historical novel in itself. But you want it to sound real, right? But also there's a danger, I think, as you just said, in making it sound so real, like even better than the real thing. It's like
Mhm.
when it's too real, it can often feel fake. So you need to find this kind of balance. And I a way I've kind of come around to figuring out how people talked in 2008, and this is great because I'm writing in a time when it existed, is to find YouTube videos of people that have recordings of people who were talking around that time, 2008, 2009, 2010,
Well, that's clever, yeah. That's a good
how
idea.
people spoke.
Mhm.
And sometimes if you're writing in a modern setting, that's great. Also, if you're writing a fantasy where you're not necessarily stuck with a particular form of dialogue or words, listen to how other people talk. Speaking of the UK, one of the great things that they have over there is radio plays on Radio 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a wonderful way of listening to people having to communicate an entire world only through dialogue and sound.
Mhm.
So, while watching TV, while watching movies is a great way of hearing dialogue, there so much is done through the visual medium that the dialogue, much like in a book, can be only part of it. Even more so than in a book because you've got visuals. Radio, everything needs to come out through sound. So, how do people talk in a radio play? Even on stage, it's still visual. Radio plays are fantastic. And not only that, but there are podcasts that are storytelling podcasts. How does all of this come across? So, how do people sound real while not sounding so real with all of the ums and the ahs and this talking over? Now, the BBC have put a lot of their stuff behind a paywall now, or you need to have a license. So it might be difficult, but there's so much on YouTube and Vimeo and Dailymotion. Go out, find it. God, I mean, audiobooks as well. Listen to
Yeah.
them. You want it to sound real, listen to how people talk. Also, one other point I will make before I let you talk, sorry.
No, 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 that's fine. That's fine.
Listen to your own conversations with people and
Yeah.
how you talk with people that you love, people that you don't love, normal everyday conversations. When you're in the supermarket and you're talking to somebody at the checkout, what does that sound like? Take notes afterwards if it's with people that you care about. Tell them that you're going to do it. Probably. Everyday life is a source of craft.
And that's really, I guess, unless you're writing like high fantasy or something, if you are writing something that takes place in the real world, you really do want to kind of try to capture the way that real people talk to each other, right? I'll also say that something that kind of occurs to me also is if you're in research mode, let's say you're writing a book that takes place in 2008. Maybe go out and find some books at your local library that were published around 2008 or
Yeah.
2009 or 2010 because they were probably written in
In
2008.
2008, yes.
And, maybe take some notes from that. I'm a researcher, and so immediately these kind of things come to mind to, if you can go in a stack and pull a book that's gonna help you out, I highly recommend.
Yep, yep. So, let's talk some more nitty-gritty craft shit.
Let's
This is
yeah.
a technical term. So, said, a
Mhm.
beautiful verb.
Yes.
Said or say,
Mhm.
beautiful, invisible. We
Yes.
tend not to see it on the page. There are other there are other verbs that express expression,
Mhm.
and the famous example is, "Unhand me, you varlet!" Annabelle ejaculated.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Very possibly true, but also, you can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah. Annabelle,
Yeah,
you're
woo!
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which is to say that you want your tags to be kind of invisible, right? Now, occasionally you can throw one in there. I think you can get away with probably not ejaculated in this era, but
But unless it's for effect, and sometimes
well,
you are
unless
gonna
they're
use
actually ejaculating, I suppose.
but sometimes if you're being a little you're trying to be a little funny, you might use a kind of a funny
Yeah,
one.
I guess you could. I guess you could.
You and I write in very different genres,
Yes.
and, the verb that you choose says so much about not only the person who is saying the dialogue, speaking ejaculating the dialogue, but it also can say something about the scene and how the scene is being built. So if you're writing something that's, a little funny, a little satirical, maybe ejaculating is a good verb to use there. How many times do you see in sort of modern fiction, use that kind of showy verb?
Yeah,
No.
never,
That
never is
never,
the answer.
never.
Yeah, and so in terms of general fiction, so yes, there's outliers, and I don't know what to tell you if you're writing something that is just like if you're writing something satirical, yeah, go with God. I don't have any advice for you. You know, if you're writing more mainstream fiction, said is really going to be about your only dialogue tag. Now, occasionally you can throw one in there for a little bit of seasoning, but I mean, you need to be so freaking sparing with that because, again, you don't want your dialogue tag to draw notice to itself. It
And we've
just it
talked
just
about this
pulls.
before.
We
Like,
have, we have, yeah.
said, replied,
Replied, yeah.
called, occasionally called,
Hmm.
sometimes shouted because the context doesn't
Yeah.
it's too difficult to make the context, it's
Right.
too wordy.
Shouted, yelled, or
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
giving some kind of action.
Whispered. These can be done, and sometimes the verb does all of the work that you need to do instead of using an adverb. So you want to be just as in your expository sections. Using strong verbs can help you with the adverb problem.
We
So
disagreed on this probably, what, one of our early
it
episodes.
was, and then you corrected yourself. Do you remember?
I
You
don't
found a
remember
lot of
correcting
I
myself
remember that
because
you said that you went back and found a lot more adverbs.
well, no, actually, what I was gonna talk about was, we said or I think you mentioned "said quietly," and I
Said
said
quietly,
"whispered,"
yes,
and I said
yes,
"whispered." Whispered will
yes.
control, and I think we slightly disagreed
We're
on
going to
that
agree to disagree. I because there
because
is a
I think
difference.
"whispered" covers it,
Now
period. That's just a hard,
I have
fast rule
said,
of
said
literature. As you know, I'm a big fan of hard, fast rules.
so like maybe once in a book, I think I've said it once in one of the 2 books. Instead of saying whispered or said quietly, I said because I was being a little silly, I said sotto voce because
Jesus, Meagan,
I'm
come on.
I'm a fucking asshole and a pretentious little twit. Of course I can do that. Now whether or not that makes it past the edit is another thing altogether. But I'm thinking it's probably in book 2 because I don't think it's in book 1. But yeah, you're gonna have a small stable of verbs. Now, I use autocrit. I know that you have also used autocrit in the past.
Mhm.
And one of the functions in the autocrit writing software platform is that it pulls out all of your dialogue tags for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And wow, is it great because you can
It's very
find
handy, yeah.
all of your clangers, all the ones where you're like, "Oh my god, did I have to say," not ejaculated, but, like, it's do I need to say screamed here,
Mhm.
or is there another way of expressing what's happening? You want them to be, like you want the verbs, these dialogue verbs to be like a little black dress. You want them to be as invisible as possible so that you can show off what's inside, right? Inside
Because yeah,
your quotation marks.
right,
That's
because
what's
that's what really
interesting.
meant yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
yes, mhm.
Now, sometimes you will have, Annabelle may ejaculate.
'Cause she's crazy.
She's
Yeah.
crazy like that. Also, when do you use action beats? When do you use dialogue tags? How do you balance it? Do you have any method to this madness? I don't have much of one, but
I really don't. I do what feels right in the moment, which helps nobody but myself. I understand that. But, I'm always thinking about how to elevate the scene, I guess. And so that drives a lot of my dialogue in the way that I structure my dialogue. And so if the next thing that is said on the page does not in some way maybe elevate stakes or move the plot forward or create tension or something like that, I really have to ask myself why am I putting this on the page? Again, understanding that real life doesn't happen like that, right? We sit in a cafe and have lunch across from each other, and we talk about the most boring, mundane shit in the world. Meanwhile, one of us is in the middle of some massive, super messy divorce, right?
yeah.
That maybe that would be more intriguing, but humans just don't work like that. But on the page, I mean, I really believe that every word should move things forward or create
Uh-huh.
more tension or atmosphere or something. But dialogue especially, every word out of their mouth should be somehow meaningful.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that words can not just be expressive of how the character is feeling in the moment, but also communicate subtext, and the dialogue tags also do that. So, and to make it clearer, the when I say dialogue tags, I mean action tags.
Mhm,
So they can be not only communicating that this person is talking to the other person or sitting across the table from them, as in your example, but also their current state of mind. So, they're clenching their fists, right?
mhm,
Or they're twisting their mouth in between a paragraph, or they are tugging on their hair, or they're fussing around with the napkin and the silverware and stuff like that. All of these things can express in those particular examples anxiety, tension, discomfort,
yeah,
or they can be leaning across the table. They can be smiling or batting their eyes, and you have a completely different expression sort of embedded within a bit of dialogue. So you could have the
yeah,
dialogue be absolutely the same and have different action tags that create totally different meanings through
mhm,
subtext. So don't sleep on your action tags. At the same time, don't do too many. I am so guilty of doing too many action tags and then having to remove them in edits because I'm like, these people never stop moving.
right, right.
Everybody's got ADHD. Um, and they can't stop moving or like moving their face or tugging on their hair or flicking things across the table or they're always doing things. And then I go in and chop them all out. But
Yeah,
even if you're drafting and you're putting too many things in, what it's doing to you is reminding you of what emotion you are trying to convey in that moment. So even if you remove most of them, you need to see if you can continue to maintain that particular emotion without having so many obvious things. It is totally doable.
and as an aside there, and Anne and I actually talked about this, a couple episodes ago, 6 years ago,
Yeah.
back when we were doing Bad Lit Friends episodes, and, and, you know, I think it's a point that Anne made was that sometimes the best dialogue is what's not said.
Mhm.
And or what is, or when a character lies. So, you know, I if you say if you've got one character saying, "Oh, how are you doing?" and the other one says, "Fine,"
Yeah.
right? There can be a lot of subtext carried
Yeah.
in that, just one word.
Yeah.
And so it's really there's all kinds of ways that you can play with dialogue to really bring richness to your prose.
Yeah.
So including, no dialogue at all, shake of a head, or just, she stared at me and then walked away, something like that. Yeah. Ouch.
So
Yeah.
ow, ow. Here's a, hot topic. M dashes.
Mhm.
I am very guilty,
Obviously you're using AI.
100%. I
Yeah.
myself am 98% AI now.
I know.
It's
Even though
okay.
I've met you, I'm pretty sure you're in AI.
I just very convincing. I love M dashes. Apparently
Yeah.
semicolons are also now
Is that a
tell.
thing now? Yeah.
2 things which I adore, which I am not going to give up on, and also, I am never going to, like, "Watch me write. I'm gonna put a camera." I shit you not. There are people out there who are saying, "I'm gonna start recording myself as I write to show people that I'm right." You don't owe anybody anything. I'm just gonna put that out there right now.
Yeah,
If you're
I
a writer and you know that you're doing it the right way, don't let people bullying you into doing stupid stuff like that. You know that you did it.
Yeah, you will never find me having to prove myself.
No.
If somebody wants to, first of all, I think my record speaks for itself. If you go back through my social media history, I'm pretty clear on what I think about AI. But yeah, I'm not gonna go through those ridiculous
No.
motions.
Why do I owe anybody any of that? There are always gonna be people who will never believe,
Mhm, mhm.
and there are always gonna be people who will be suckered in by AI writing. And then the rest of us live in the middle.
Well,
And
it's like you say, first they came for my M dashes, now they're coming for my semicolons. It's
yeah.
like, oh, he uses the letter U and the
Mhm.
number 7
That's
too
right.
many times, so must be ChatGPT. Yeah,
He used the word "said" too many times, not enough ejaculated.
yeah.
So, clearly AI. So and I love an M dash in dialogue because
Me too. Yeah.
it's how I
When somebody
talk.
cuts, yeah, it's when somebody cuts. Yeah, we do it all the time to each other, right? We cut each other off, and so yeah, if you were doing a transcript of this, we'd have a lot of in dashes in the middle of our dialogue.
Mhm. So I've read a lot of deposition transcripts recently in doing this motion for summary judgment. There are M dashes
Mhm.
because we cut each other off. We're not supposed to. It's
Mhm.
very bad. You should not be talking over each other. It's
Mhm.
something that you talk about in the beginning, but there are M dashes because that's how people talk. D Not too many because, again, then they do draw attention to themselves. It should be like, like salt, just enough to give the right amount of, like, flavor and oomph. But also another one, ellipses. I use fewer than I used to. One of the things they say about Gen X is that they love an ellipsis.
Yeah, I love an ellipsis.
I've been using fewer of them, and that's perhaps because I'm writing about millennials right now, but,
Mm.
but I do like an ellipsis, and again, it's something that, when used sparingly, can be very effective. A lot of us trail off. It's good to, again, for subtext, somebody who's lost in thought, somebody who's losing track of where they are, someone
Where
who's
I see ellipses being abused is, people try to substitute them for commas. So
really.
yeah, so that's where I see it. So, like we think of a comma as a built-in pause, right?
Yeah.
And so and we also tend to think of ellipses as a built-in pause. And so I've actually seen, yeah, like that's where kind of the abuse happens is, oh, if you just used a comma here, you'd be fine.
I'm gonna be looking for it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that, but yeah, that does sound like a
Well, now I feel like I'm just imagining it.
I don't I'm sorry if I gaslit you. I'm sure you're right. So, another thing you wanna think about is when you're writing it, like, how much white space this sounds so really weird, but, how much white space is there on the page? Because
Mhm.
when you have dialogue going back and forth and people are saying things very rapidly, quite short phrases, it can look like you've just got a column of text. It can look
Yeah.
kinda weird. And also, we only speak like that for short periods of time. If you're Unless you're doing it for some sort of effect, you might wanna spruce it up. Not too many lines back and forth without, breaking it up. That's my personal preference.
No, I think that's really, really good advice because, yeah, if you've got a whole page of just nothing but back and forth dialogue, that's gonna wear on a reader.
Yeah, yep, and people lose track of who's talking very
Mhm,
easily.
mhm.
So you can have a lot of dialogue back and forth. But if you aren't throwing in maybe every, I don't know, like, I'm not gonna say a number, because I don't like
Come on,
after
give us a hard, fast rule, Meagan.
8, no.
Okay.
But sorry, I pulled that out of my fundament. But I don't like when it's, "I went to the store. How about you?" John asked. "I went there yesterday," Mary said. "How interesting," John remarked. "And why is that?" Mary asked. I don't like after every single one, I do like it when, especially when 2 people are talking, right?
Yeah.
It just to have it
At
as
some
long
point, you
as the
drop the
voices,
tag, yeah.
at some point you're dropping tags.
Mhm.
But it also, at the same time, after you drop the tags, bring in one so that people can reorient themselves.
Right.
And again, be as invisible as possible.
Mhm.
You can even do it with an action tag, just
And
to kind of center it back.
and again, I go back to this all the time, and this is why writers should be readers. You're going to get better if you look at a book that you enjoy and see how that author is doing a conversation, like a back and forth conversation, right? It's like
Yeah.
study that. I'm not saying you should just pull it straight from their book. I'm saying, study what is working and try to apply that to your own prose.
And study what is not working.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Both of those need to go hand in hand. Because when it doesn't feel right, when it feels stiff and weird, you know it right away.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
Another one, multiple speakers. Now, in my first book, I have a dinner party where there are 5 people talking. I always wanted to write a scene where at a dinner party, because it's hard. It's really hard, especially if
Yeah,
you're bringing in people that you might not have met before.
yeah.
How do you how do you make it clear?
I would imagine you'd read some Agatha Christie for that.
Yes, actually, yes. The way that I approached it is that I had a couple of scenes leading up to the party itself where I established new characters in smaller groups, either one-on-one or 3 people talking, where
Mhm,
we already knew who 2 of the characters were, and we already knew those 2 voices, so that the 3rd voice could develop. Then bring in another voice that was less familiar and establish that in the same way, so that when you get 5 people around a table, you now know all of the voices. It's like a ramp up. But
yeah.
at the same time, you can't rely on your reader to always know and track. So you have to make sure that you're making it clear by action tags or by dialogue tags what's going on and who's saying things. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. I have one extended scene that goes across 2 chapters. I actually think I pulled it off, and it's something I feel pretty proud about because it's very clear who everybody is as a result of it.
I would be very interested in reading that,
I'd
yeah.
be happy to
That's
share it
good.
with you.
Yeah,
It
please.
it was difficult, and also another way was I split things apart, right? So people go off to the kitchen and do
Sure,
things
sure.
together, or there's only 3 people at the table, or, it is somebody goes to the bathroom on their own and somebody goes and tries to join them and, talk to them
That
through the
sounds
door. So it's this is how you break it up and bring it back together. It was not easy, and I
yeah,
worked on it and worked on it and worked on it.
that sounds really
Yeah.
difficult, which is why Kirk Rafferty's number 1 rule of writing, no more than 2 people in a room ever.
I have in this book too. I've got, oh my gosh, I've got a scene, at least one scene where there are 6 people talking. It's very short that there are 6 people talking, but that was hard. But there are a number of scenes where there are 5 people talking, and it's difficult. But in those situations, I built up all of the characters before I brought them all together at once so
Mhm,
that
mhm.
you could tell who they were by not only by specific words that they like to use or the tones of their voice or specific action tags. Somebody likes to do like twirl her hair or somebody's straightening her shirt. These are idiosyncratic characters that you can tell who they are,
Yeah,
ideally.
yeah.
It's hard and it just requires a lot of practice and a lot of listening. Now that we've talked about how to do things right, let's talk about what happens when shit goes wrong.
Mhm.
You were talking before about exposition dumps
Yeah.
disguised as conversation, the "as you know, Bob."
Mhm.
The first time I came to Helena, Montana, I was but a young insurance salesman. And now today, I own the largest insurance sales, whatever. I don't sell insurance
You were doing so
company.
good, yeah.
I know. In in the greater Helena area. Your daughter, the magnificent Margot, is exactly the sort of bride I would like for myself. Well, Bob, as you know, sorry.
Yeah,
Well, Tom, as you know, I would be
yeah.
delighted to have a man of your stature and beautiful flowing blonde hair as my son-in-law.
Wow.
Yeah.
Please keep going.
This
No,
is book
please don't keep
3.
going. Yeah,
No,
oh,
no, no, no,
awesome.
no, 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 no. You don't have to do it. God knows if that book would be any good, but you could write that, without doing that kind of dialogue. Not hard. So but please don't do it. The other problems when your dialogue is way too on the nose. I mean, sometimes your characters are gonna say what they mean, but subtext
Mhm,
is what
mhm.
makes books fun,
Right,
so
right.
it can also feel fake. Do you have any good examples of on the nose dialogue?
Well, I don't know if I have examples, but it does go back to, what we were saying earlier about, just having some nuance, right? Sometimes the dialogue is what's not said, or somebody being evasive. And
Uh-huh.
so if everybody is saying what they mean, it quickly becomes very, very boring, right? If everybody turns into a computer all of a sudden. And humans just aren't like that. If your spouse is mad at you and you say, "What's wrong?" and they say, "Nothing." If you're writing that, the reader knows that no, there actually is something right. Whereas if you say, "Hey, what's wrong?" and they tell you in great detail, I don't
My
know,
sciatica,
yeah,
you know?
I mean, so I'm not saying that's wrong, because maybe you are dealing with a very direct person, or maybe this situation just warrants it, but it's a different conversation and it's a different mood, it's a different vibe than, "Hey, what's wrong?" "Nothing."
Yeah.
Right? Or
Yeah.
or saying, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's my dialogue, my 2 on the nose dialogue. Sorry, the cotton is still stuck up
It's
there.
okay. So, uh, dialect, accent written phonetically,
You have to be so careful about that, and I do actually have good examples. So my first book takes place largely in West Texas in the early 1960s, and there is there is that Texas drawl, that accent that the locals have, right? And so my characters who are in West Texas, I had to be very careful about not turning them into caricatures.
mhm,
And so, one of them is really resist that urge to do things phonetically. And if you do actually, try to work in dialogue phonetically, do it very, very sparingly and only to emphasize
yeah,
something.
mhm,
Right? Otherwise, you really are turning your characters into cartoons,
mhm.
and possibly worse.
You risk alienating or offending readers.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard. I in my first book, a big chunk of it takes place in Northern Vermont
Mhm,
with people who are local to Northern Vermont. I myself am not, but I knew some of the Vermont lingo, and so I wanted to figure out how to work in enough that it would sound because, like, from where I grew up, I know that there are words that we use in our dialect that aren't common in other parts of the country, but I know that it gives that local flavor. So, like, how do I do that so that it gives local flavor without sounding like a caricature? And
mhm.
so I found some words which I already knew about, like Flatlanders are people who are not from Vermont, for example. Also, people, it's like an absolute stereotype, but people genuinely do say it. Instead of Jesus Christ, Jeezum Crow. So sparingly used showed that, okay, we're in Vermont. because people, especially from that generation, people, which is our generation, people do use it. I did a lot of research to make sure that it wasn't too much. I didn't want to offend anybody. I'm sure I'll offend somebody. That's okay. I can be offensive, but
Mhm.
it can be offensive, especially if you are, writing in English or writing in another language, and you are talking about somebody from who is a native speaker of another language talking in your language
Mhm.
to kind of play up their accent,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the for as a Simpsons reference, like the apooification of dialogue, it can
Yes.
be really
And
ugh.
again, I'll take you back to my first book. My first book is The Cosmonaut, and so the main character is a Soviet cosmonaut who crash lands in West Texas in 1961. And her ability to speak English is very limited. I specifically, had her learn English in like our equivalent of high school, but really had no reason to ever speak it or something. So she knew very little English and she picked more up as she went along. But I had to be extremely careful, with her spoken English to make sure that I just wasn't making her come across as a complete idiot
Mhm.
or a stereotype.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult. Probably a very large portion of my editing came from me making sure that this character was not a stereotype.
It's delicate work, and it
Mhm.
may be that people who are writing may want to approach a sensitivity reader
Absolutely. Yeah.
if it's something that is important to
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
a dialect or an accent expressed. It's not to say that these should not be expressed,
Mhm.
but if it's something that's delicate or open to causing offense, then it is worth your while to approach someone to say, "Hey, can you, help me out with this? How much do you charge so that I won't get canceled on Threads?"
Yeah.
Priceless, you know?
Your beta readers might be a really good source, if
Yes.
you're if you've got somebody who has that knowledge, yeah.
Beta readers, helped me with a couple of things where I didn't even realize, that I had said things that even though they weren't necessarily wrong, could be read kinda weird. So, I'm very grateful to having had those things fixed. So, talking about fixing stuff, there are so many ways that you can do it, but the best way is read your dialogue out loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Humans or humanoid or creatures that are speaking like humans are speaking it, so have humans speak it. So
Mhm.
do it by yourself. Get a willing victim to help you do it. You can also do text to speech. I use text to speech that's built into the software that I have. It is extremely helpful.
Mhm.
It's built into a lot of writing platforms. It's built into Microsoft Word. It may sound weird and robotic, but you'll get used to it. There are also other options, but be aware that a bunch of them can be uh, AI forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're sensitive to that sort of thing, be aware what you're doing. When I was first starting out, I used a product called Speechify by 11 Labs and then found out like it's all fucking AI and was like I remember having this conversation with you where I was like, I can't use this anymore.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not good, and I stopped using it even though it was really useful for me, I
Mhm.
was super grossed out by it. So
Mhm.
but again, your mileage may vary, and you may be okay with this thing, so do a little bit of research. What you're listening for is, does this sound like 2, 3, 6 humans talking? Even though it may not be exactly like what human conversations sound like because there aren't ums and ahs.
But you want it to sound plausible.
Does it sound real? And then if there are problems, what are the problems? You need to get into diagnosis, mode. Is it your words? Is it emphasis? Is it that you have too much subtext going on and the reader is confused? Is it that there's too little subtext and it's too on the nose? You can again, we We said this in one of our recent episodes. It's like pornography. You know it when you see it. Um, you're gonna know. Something's going to feel off and not right. And if you can do it with other people, they can help you as well. This doesn't sound real. Or you may even hear like, wow, this sounds really real. And then you know you've got a pattern to kind of work from.
That's right.
So it also gives you an idea of when to cut stuff out when you're talking too much. I am guilty of overwriting dialogue and doing way too much dialogue and having to cut it back. Sometimes it'll give you an insight that you need to completely just scrap the whole thing and that you don't need all of this dialogue and you can do it in a couple of lines of exposition, right? Now, if you are writing your 455,000 word space opera, maybe you don't mind if you if you but
Don't do that.
well, actually that person has decided to cut their book up into at least 2 books.
Well, okay.
Yes, she's really gonna try, and good for her. But, sometimes the scene itself is just the problem. Sometimes you just don't need it at all, right? But, which doesn't mean that you have a problem with your book, it just means that you wrote a scene that's for you. Raising my hand here, I have many scenes that I write just for me, but I don't realize when I'm writing them that they're just for me. But when you write dialogue that works, it feels like magic because it feels like human beings are living and having a whole life inside of this little world that you've created. And
Mhm.
they're puppets and got your hands up their asses and you're making them talk and it sounds like human people. And it's just really, really cool in a way that, while exposition can be beautiful or hard or excruciating, books are a human expression until AI takes it from us as well. And there and what is more human than speech?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And on that deep thought, let's talk some hot goss.
Let's do it.
So I have spent the last 2 weeks, well, getting married and Kirk was sick, being chronically on threads. I don't recommend this to anybody. My brain is rotten now. So again, you're welcome. So, as we were I had a bunch of things that were kinda crazy, weird stuff that came a lot of, like, "Look at my great AI platform that's going to solve all your problems," like,
My
"I'll write
god.
your query letter for you." Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
there's now an AI platform that says that it can write your query letter and your synopsis. Do not do this.
Yeah.
There was also the Instagram post that I shared with you today of the guy talking about the book, I Got My 2 Homies Pregnant. That was a great one. And a again, I talked about the hot chef lady the other week, back in the Mesozoic era. She continues to be, weird and triggering to many people. But over the past 24 hours, the latest discourse has been about writers, why do you have to use such big words? Such
Mhm.
hard words. Can't you write with easier words? There was a word in a book, and this is me saying this as this person, not me. I will make this clear. And I didn't know what it meant. And here it is. And the poster took a screenshot of them Googling the word scry, SCRY, for a definition. So they did the thing that you're supposed to do when you don't know what a word means, which is go look it up in the dictionary, right? So
Mhm.
it's okay. She didn't know the word scry. She was a
Yeah.
very young
She
person.
she she answered her own
She
question.
did. She did.
Yeah.
And and
And I
that's
don't think
okay.
she realized that.
No, I don't think she did either. And it's okay not to know all the words.
Sure.
And this is how we become better readers, is not knowing all the words. And, back in, the Mesozoic era, when Kirk and I were young children, we had things called dictionaries that were physical objects that we had to look words up in.
So many pages.
So
Yeah,
many
crazy.
pages. I
Yeah.
spent so many hours with my Merriam-Webster with the red covers. I also had a thesaurus. Spent a lot of time reading all of these things. I learned a lot by reading a physical dictionary because I'm that kind of nerd. Surprise. So, but it's okay not to know words. Totally cool. People took some issue with this, not with the not knowing words, but with the writers why you write so hard aspect of it, that
Yeah. Why
writers
are you
shouldn't
using big words?
why do you use
Mhm.
big words? This goes back to what we talk about all the time.
By the way, scry is a short word.
It's a
It's
very
not a
short
big word.
word.
Yeah,
It's a very
yeah.
short word. But, if you don't know the meaning, it's okay. It's cool. But not every book is for every reader. And there are books that I know that I should read that I've looked at it, I'm like, style of writing isn't for me.
Sure, sure.
So it's not that the words were too big or I didn't know them, but it's
I'll
just
give
like,
you an example. Master and Commander. Have you ever tried to read this
yes,
book?
I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So if you can get through the language, right? Like, the language is dense. It's
It's dense. It's dense.
really hard to get through it. Yeah, but if you can get through it, it's a great book.
Yeah,
But I can see, though, some people saying, "I ain't got time for this," right? And
yeah,
setting it aside. That's okay.
yeah,
It's okay. What I what I don't wanna hear out of your little mouth hole is for is saying he should have written it in a more accessible way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And some people have pointed out that, okay, s some people find Shakespeare difficult, some people find Dickens difficult, but there are retellings of the stories that you'll find in these books or these plays that are more accessible. There are any number of versions of Shakespeare's plays that can be more accessible, either in a condensed version or in a modern retelling or a different retelling,
Mhm.
that can be more accessible to newer readers, let's say. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think the problem is telling writers how to write what they wanna write.
Yeah.
So but
Yeah, if you're telling me as a writer that I need to use less complicated words, yeah, go to hell, right? I'm
Kirk,
gonna write what I'm gonna write.
you just told me not to use sotto voce. So
I did, yes, I did. And you know what? I stand by it.
God.
I'm a
So
complicated person
you
like
are,
that.
you are. You're the most annoying person I know. No. So but where things started to go and I think that is an interesting conversation. But this is Threads, and things don't stay interesting for long before they start going really weird.
That's right, that's right.
So, where it went weird is another writer, without naming names, came in and sent everything into a completely different direction and
Mhm.
said, essentially, it's ableist to insist on using complicated language, essentially
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Now plenty of disabled people then came in and said, "Hi, I am disabled. I don't need anybody talking down to me. And hi, I am a disabled reader who sometimes has problems with more complicated prose. But you know what I do? I use a dictionary." Or I look at the context, or I spend some time trying to figure it out. I'm not necessarily going to get everything. And you could be, able-bodied
Mm,
or
mhm,
not have any impairments and still have problems with parsing things. Look,
mhm,
there's a
mhm.
reason why I've never finished Ulysses. It's because it's like too much stuff and it does not compute. I have an English degree from Yale. I can't do it, and that's okay, right? But these disabled readers were saying, "Don't fucking infantilize us
Mhm.
by saying that somehow having more complicated prose is beyond the capabilities of disabled folks." It then metastasized, because it's the internet, and we can never have anything nice, and it became, "Don't assume that everybody's got the same disability that you have," or but more toxic, why are you why are you doing the heavy lifting for straight white men?" Um, did see that, that was great. Um, and it all went crazy and cuckoo in every single way that you could imagine. What got buried in the middle of it was the point at the beginning. This new reader saying, "Make things easier for me."
Mhm.
She was actually making things easier for herself because she actually knew what to do. I don't think she had
Yeah,
anybody
yeah, yeah.
around her telling her, "You're doing the right thing." It can feel
Yeah,
hard and
yeah.
scary, but
She Googled the word.
yeah. Yeah. I
Good
I
on
think
you.
I think some people did pile on her, and I think that was unfair. I think we need to
Well,
have
yeah.
compassion for her, but what wasn't cool was people coming in and saying somehow this was about disability rights.
Mhm.
That I you know,
That's
I
insulting.
it is insulting, and
Yeah.
disability comes in so many different flavors, and there are people for whom this is going to be impossible,
Mhm.
and who may need something that is more like, if you remember those Reader's Digest kind of easy read versions of books
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
God, I'm old, but it could also be somebody who is dyslexic, who
Mhm.
needs a different typeface.
Mhm. Well, accessibility is a whole different conversation, right?
Yeah,
You know, we have ways to make books accessible. We have
yeah.
large print books. We
Look,
have your e-reader can do different fonts. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. You know, or larger fonts. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will tell you as somebody with aging eyes, when I found a large print copy of Ann Patchett's Tom Lake in the little lending library in my neighborhood, and I took it out, I was like, "Fucking score." Now I can read a book on paper in the evening.
Mhm.
It's hard for me these days to read. I so when I was up in Berkeley, I went to a great bookshop, the Lazy Cat bookshop. It's amazing. There is indeed a lazy cat there. Every time I've been, she's been sleeping, so everybody's very quiet in the bookstore, not to wake this cat. And I picked up a couple of books, Fanny Burney's Evelina, which I've been meaning to read, for ages and never have. And it's got small type. And I'm like, you know what? That is a daytime reader. So accessibility is important. There's a reason why I buy everything on my friggin' e-reader now because I'm getting older and I wanna be able to read, but this is a different conversation from
That's
big
right. That's right.
words.
That's right.
Big words. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna tell the same story if I'm using different vocabulary. The words are chosen for a reason, and it's not to make you think that I'm super smart. I mean, you just know it. So it's I have a big vocabulary, and so I know which words I mean, hopefully. And there's also books that have smaller vocabulary sets. That doesn't make them, like, less important or less difficult. It's just a different vocabulary.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
I feel like the person who made that comment about ableism had their heart in the right place, at least in the beginning, because they did start
I think
doubling
you're
down and
less
tripling
cynical
down.
than I am.
She started tripling down, quintupling down, but I feel like I kinda get what she was talking about, but at the same time, it's like, "Lady, maybe not." I will continue to use sotto voce. Sorry. Not sorry, but I probably will edit it out.
Disappointed in you.
Sorry. Not sorry. So, main takeaway today is that you should definitely eavesdrop on everybody all the time. It's extremely fun. It's also really good for your craft. It's also really fun. And you can find us on all of the terrible, evil socials, including Threads. All of my friends can find me on Threads and find you on Threads, and Bad Lit Friends on Threads and on Instagram and on Blue Sky. We are Badlit Friends everywhere. We're also on all major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We are on AntennaPod, which apparently nobody except for me uses. And we are also on YouTube. I checked our metrics before we started. We are actually doing pretty good, even though we've had a couple of weeks of not being around. But
Mhm.
continue to please like, subscribe, share with people. I've had a lot of people recently tell their friends, other writers they know about our podcast. We are going up in numbers, so if you can leave us a comment, like us, anything, it really helps us get our word out to other people, and we want everybody to join our cults.
Yes, please validate us.
When we are validated, eventually we will have enough internet butt coins to buy robes for all of our inner circle, $50 a month.
Yeah.
There are buttons, there are robes, there's, snazzy chapeaus.
Eventually, yes.
We did talk about the berets. Still thinking about getting berets for, Rocky Mountain fiction writers. We could have
Yeah.
berets.
Yeah.
But, next week, we are going to talk about something that may very well get us canceled. Let's see. We're gonna walk that line. Can you separate art from the artist?
The
Th
answer may surprise you.
or will it?
It won't. It
Tune in to find out.
won't.
But until next time, we will see you then.
Bye.